The Scene on the Sarcophagus. 3 September 2016, 6:34 p.m. 42 degrees 26 minutes, 41.6 seconds north, 87 degrees 49 minutes, 32.5 seconds west. And so I ended up being a witness to the final scene, the meeting between Pope Gregory VII and King Henry IV, whom the Pope had still not anointed as emperor and had in fact excommunicated, banned from Christendom and bound with the heavy chains of anathema. The meeting took place in a little sitting room near the kitchen of the hunting lodge turned B&B, a room with a view of the Castello di Rosena, one of Matilda's other castles, a place that looked to be in much better shape than the pile of rocks at Canossa that I'd been wandering through for 2 days. Matilda herself was, as I expected, an athletic blonde woman in her early 30s. She was wearing a simple knit dress over yoga tights, and greeted her cousin, that would be Henry, with wordless air kisses. Gregory, a thin man in his late 50s, was sitting alone on a rather severe little couch, wearing a gray suit, white shirt, and no tie. He did not acknowledge Henry's presence. As for me, I might as well have been invisible. No one paid me the slightest attention. Henry began to walk toward the Pope, but Matilda stopped him and indicated that he should wait. There was some activity going on in the kitchen. Through a half-open door, I glimpsed Hugo whispering something urgent to a couple of middle-aged women, one in an embroidered sweater, the other in an apron. I figured they were the owner of the B&B and her disgruntled and gossipy cook. At last Hugo emerged from the kitchen carrying the Pope's mitre. He placed it solemnly on Gregory's head and stepped off to the side. The Pope extended his hand languidly, still without looking at anyone in particular. Henry checked with his cousin and godfather. Both Matilda and Hugo nodded, eager and anxious, as if they were saying, "Go on, hurry, this offer won't last long." Then Henry, still in his black leather motorcycle jacket and jeans with dirty knees, approached the Pope, knelt down and kissed his ring. Not his feet, just the ring. The rest of it went really fast. Gregory performed the rituals hurriedly and distractedly, speaking Latin at a breakneck pace, like an Irish priest visiting an American parish in 1962, a priest with a tea time at the golf club in half an hour. I myself have never really heard the old Catholic Church Latin, but my high school teacher liked to do imitations. First, Gregory listened to Henry's confession and gave him absolution. Then the Pope lifted from the king the heavy chains of anathema. At least that's what he said. He spoke the words, and somehow, magically or sacramentally, or by virtue of a socially constructed privilege, however you want to interpret the power of those words, the invisible chains were lifted from Henry's shoulders. Or maybe there had never been any chains, and the words were just words, empty words. But Henry's shoulders sure looked more relaxed, as if something had been lifted. At least it seemed that way to me. You know, if my memory can be trusted. Now, 7 years later, I remind myself that Henry was wearing a motorcycle jacket made of stiff, heavy leather, the kind of jacket that's better at concealing than revealing. Anyway, Hugo hurried into the kitchen and returned with some bread and wine on a tray, as nervous and stressed out as the altar boy serving that visiting priest from Ireland, and Gregory gave the king Holy Communion, never once making eye contact, looking over Henry's head the whole time. A bite of bread, a sip of wine, a few words in Latin, and Henry had been welcomed back into Christendom. When it was over, Gregory went upstairs by himself, carrying his mitre in his own hands. Hugo embraced his godson with what looked to me like genuine warmth. Then Matilda kissed her cousin on the lips, whispered something in his ear, and gave him a long look, filled with emotions that I couldn't begin to fathom. In St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, there's a statue of Matilda by Gian Lorenzo Bernini himself, or maybe it's by a guy named Andrea Bolgi, one of the sculptors in Bernini's studio. I've never seen this statue in person, but I've studied it as much as I can in various books over the years. And today, here in this coffee shop in Zion, Illinois, I've been studying it even more. I've been looking at every image I can find on the internet. The statue is the top part of Matilda's tomb, or to be exact, of her funerary monument. It dates back to the 1630s, to the papacy of Urban VIII. Apparently this Pope Urban was a big fan of Matilda. I guess he wished he could have a sexy female general leading his armies, so he commissioned Bernini and his crew to design a monument, and ordered that Matilda's remains be moved to St. Peter's. The statue itself isn't all that different from the Matilda I saw. Of course, it's much bigger than the real woman, and it's made of marble, but given the conventions of heroic sculpture, it's a portrayal of a good-looking athletic woman with the confidence to command an army. And that description fits the Matilda I saw in the hunting lodge. But the part that really interests me, that I just spent a full hour staring at, trying to zoom in on the JPEGs, is the bottom of the monument, the sarcophagus, the big marble box where they put her relics, what was left of her body, more than 500 years after her death. On the front of the sarcophagus is a bas-relief depicting the submission of the Emperor Henry IV to Pope Gregory VII. So how did Bernini and his assistants imagine the event, 5.5 centuries after it happened? Well, for them, and for their patron, Pope Urban, this had to be a celebration of papal power, a solemn commemoration of a key moment in the history of the Roman Catholic Church. So the scene looks right out of ancient Rome. It's a very formal, classical depiction of the moment when the heir of Caesar, in the person of Henry, bows down to kiss the feet of the heir of St. Peter, in the person of Gregory, settling the question, once and for all, of which one of them was, is, and always will be the boss. Well, in 2009, in that hunting lodge, I gotta say I saw something different. What I saw that afternoon looked nothing at all like the scene on the sarcophagus, not least because nobody was wearing togas. So what did I see? An act of fake penitence? A grudging absolution? A setback for the Pope? A brilliant endgame where the king forced the Pope to accept a draw? Maybe. I mean, all that was part of it. It was really clear that the Pope had been hoping to fire Henry completely and get himself a new emperor. But all he got was a kiss on his ring. Was that kiss an act of submission or a subtle fuck you? Now, 7 years later, I kind of wish I had pulled out my phone and taken a few photos, just so I could compare what I saw with Bernini's version. But at that point of my journey, I was completely out of the gotta record everything as it happens mode. When Henry asked me to be a witness, I figured he meant a witness who could testify under oath. You know, if lawyers got involved. Not the kind of witness who shares the whole event to social media 10 minutes after it happens. But now I'm not sure. Maybe he did want me to take pictures and post them. Well, the image of that event did get out, didn't it? It took a while, a long while, but now it's in Rome, in marble, on Matilda's sarcophagus, of all places. And it says, the Pope won.